Welcome to Generous Impact. This is Brett Brummett.
And this is Amanda Brummett. We are joined today by our friend Diana Pfaff talking about the Irving Schools Foundation. It's near and dear to our hearts as both Bret and I served on their board for many years. In this episode, you'll hear about the amazing work this foundation does for students and teachers in Irving ISD. Well, Diana, thank you so much for being here with us today. As Bret and I were chatting before the show, I think we figured out that you and I have been friends for 20 years. So
Has
probably
it been that long?
Yeah, I know. We're getting old, which means probably 19 for Bret.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long time.
Well, Diana, Bret and I have had the honor of knowing you for a long time, but most of our guests don't. So tell us who you are, and we want to know both personally and professionally.
Well, personally, I am a rare one as I was born and raised in the town that I still live in. I was born and raised in Irving, Texas. I did escape for a little bit for college, Texas Tech in Lubbock. Those were the best years of my life.
The Harvard of the Plains?
Yes, exactly. As you know them well now, since your daughter is there.
Yeah.
I actually came back to Irving and got a job with the city of Irving with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which I thought would last a maximum of 3 years. It's been almost 29 now. So I serve as the Vice President of Marketing Communications for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is now called Visit Irving, and the Irving Convention Center at Las Colinas, which opened in 2011. So my job has changed quite a bit. The city of Irving's changed quite a bit. When I started, we had Texas Stadium and the Dallas Cowboys, and when I finish, who knows what we might have? We might have a casino in the Dallas Mavericks, from what I'm hearing. So who knows what's on the horizon? But it has changed quite a bit.
Awesome.
That's me in a nutshell. Born and raised, and still here in Irving.
Perfect. Well, and then we invited you to speak about the Irving Schools Foundation, and that goes a little bit back further beyond you. That actually was started by Ann Pfaff, which is, I believe, can you confirm, is she your mother?
She is my mother.
Perfect.
I can confirm that.
You know that, Bret.
I know. And so she started that back in the 80s. What was happening at that time in Irving that prompted her desire to organize and launch the Schools Foundation?
Well, she was actually a teacher. She was a teacher in the 60s, actually at Irving High School. She's not from Irving. She's from Dallas, moved to Corpus with my dad, and then moved back to the area. Got a job at Irving High School in the early 60s. She ran for school board in 1977 in Irving and served for 12 years. So towards the end of her tenure, and while she was on the school board, she noticed that teachers had these great ideas, but they couldn't be funded legally because of state laws and district laws. And so she wanted to start a foundation for grants for teachers, so that they could get classroom grants to do these things that she thought was fabulous. She actually started the very first Schools Foundation in Texas. Now, I think every district pretty much has one, and one of the very first foundations in the country. It wasn't the first, but one of them. She did have a couple in the country to model it after. So she founded it primarily for grants for teachers, but also it started some student scholarships. And they started very, very small. I remember that they had their scholarship reception at the Irving Arts Center, and my mom went to Grandy's and picked up Grandy's rolls for breakfast. I can remember coming home from college in the 90s and making the certificates on my computer for the scholarship recipients. So,
putting that advertising degree to use.
Yes, exactly. Putting my advertising degree to use. Yes, on one of those first printers and computers way back then. So yeah. But yeah, it's amazing what it's turned into and how strong it is right now.
Yeah. And as a kiddo, what did you think of your mom at that time doing those things between school board and then starting this foundation? Did it?
At that time, I don't think I could really fully appreciate it because I had, so much on my plate at the time. It wasn't until I got older that I could appreciate not only what my mother did, but what these kids do to get these scholarships. I look at some of the ones I read scholarships. I read them to award them, and what they go through and what they do to get. These are kids that couch surf. These are kids that have had to leave their parents because they're on drugs. and they have to take 2 or 3 jobs, and yet they're going to school and they're getting straight A's and they're getting scholarships and they're going to go to college. And it's not because of their parents, but it's to basically in spite of their parents. And I look at my own childhood, and I just feel like I don't feel like I wouldn't say I feel like a loser, but I didn't have to have 2 jobs. I didn't have to go. I didn't couch surf. I had a great family. I was very lucky, and to see what these kids go through and to see them excel, it takes your breath away. So I'm really proud of my mom for starting that out.
That makes it even more remarkable that she saw that need, even though
Yes.
that wasn't something you guys were experiencing. And for anybody that hasn't met Ann Pfaff, she's just a lovely human being, one of the most hospitable, kindest people I've ever encountered.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Diana, you alluded to it a little bit, but let's go ahead and get into the details of what the Irving Schools Foundation does, specifically on the scholarships and then on those programs for teachers, which I didn't know that it started with the programs. So that even is new to me.
It did. For the scholarships, well, and I do have to say that the foundation has grown so much that those are just two components of it. There's still the scholarship breakfast, which is huge. But it's so much more than just scholarships and grants. The scholarships since 1987, the Schools Foundation has awarded more than $8 million in college and continuing education scholarships to ISD seniors, Irving ISD seniors, and district employees. The scholarship program is the heart, basically. It's still considered the heart of the work that the Schools Foundation does, along with 2 new signature programs called Food for Thought and Spark Tank that I'll talk about a little bit later. And in most of these cases, which was as well back then, these students that are selected for the award, the awards are the first in their families to attend college. And a high percentage of the awardees come from significantly disadvantaged backgrounds. Currently, 80% of students in the Irving Independent School District are economically disadvantaged. And that is so much higher than when I was in school back in the late 80s. It's just incredibly higher. Everything changes, and certainly the school district has. And there's a need for this foundation, even more than it was when my mother found it, and which is why there's more programs than there is today. But back to the scholarship program, just to give you an idea of the annual impact that it is currently in 2023, they awarded more than 250 scholarships, totaling approximately $467,000, and they were awarded to students to all 5 of the Irving ISD high schools, and then to the staff to seek further education and training. So that program's still going strong. It's still awarded at Breakfast with the Stars, which is what started it in the 80s with them serving Grandy's rolls at the Irving Arts Center. So that program and that breakfast is still growing strong. They have over 1,000 people here at the convention center every April.
Incredible. Breakfast. I love the tie-in to what started with Grandy's rolls, and your mom is now at the building that you spent a huge portion of your career to develop.
Yes, and I love that too. I love it too. I'm afraid they're going to outgrow it, but I love it.
You'll just have to build a bigger convention center, Diana.
That's right.
As you watch that organization grow and develop, are there any specific stories that really culminate, the sense that you've taken away over the years of the community or the organization really meeting the needs of the community through the programs? Yeah,
and I'm glad that you brought that up, because in 2012, a scholarship audit was conducted when our current CEO, who's Crystal Scania, who does a great job, Crystal, she discovered that only 46% of the students that were receiving scholarships were actually claiming them.
What?
Yes, 46%. So she called a handful of them and found that there were a variety of reasons that these students were not claiming them, such as having to drop out to support their families, or parents asking them not to go so that they could serve as the daycare for their younger siblings. But the most heartbreaking story that she heard was that of one student that received a very generous scholarship to Yale. The student arrived on day 1, and his roommate had a brand new Range Rover, all the new Apple products and brand new clothes. Meanwhile, the student came with a trash bag and some clothes in it and a backpack. He completely felt like he did not belong at Yale and dropped out. So it was after this that the foundation decided it needed to increase its services to its students by not only the scholarships, but to help with resources. And Spark Tank was born. So it took after Shark Tank. So Spark Tank started in 2013 as a way to provide opportunities for students to advocate for themselves, ask for customized programming that fit their needs, and it gives Irving students a chance to practice their public speaking skills. So a few highlights from this program that's been going on for, I cannot believe it, 10 years now. There was a student that was born without the lower half of her left arm. She wanted to learn to play the cello because her best friend played. She asked her orchestra teacher if she could play, and her teacher told her, unfortunately, no, because she would need 2 arms to play, and tried to encourage her to play another instrument. The teacher was so upset that she had told the student no. She did some research, and she actually found a design and came up with a plan. She came to Spark Tank because Spark Tank was available on a monthly basis with a committee, and asked for 2 cellos and some plastic for the 3D printer that would print the prosthetic arm. So for $3,000, Schools Foundation was able to completely transform this child's life and the trajectory of her educational career. So the reason they needed to make 2 cellos was because her best friend was going to learn to play backwards as well and be her mentor.
Aww.
Isn't that a great story?
Isn't
that just an amazing story?
Yeah. And actually that's such a low threshold of dollars when someone's willing.
Right, to help a student, help that student. I mean, it was such a great story. But it's spurred so many other programs that the Schools Foundation can serve for the whole child. Now the foundation serves the child's basic needs: food, clothing, and then grows with them to provide innovation programming, and then scholarships. Scholarships are the icing on the cake. Spark Tank is also where teachers go to present their ideas for grants for their classroom, and for innovative learning. There was a teacher who wanted to take his kids to, I can't remember, what are they called? Zone, one of those, places where kids go and play a bunch of video games, arcades, one of those like Speed Zone or something like that.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he just wanted a grant to take him to there to show his kids that wanted to get into engineering the different type of technical machines that they are, technical gaming systems that they have. So it can be as simple as that, or it can be as elaborate as needing cellos through a 3D printer.
I love to hear that.
Great.
Yeah, that you guys have adapted.
Mm-hmm. Yes, they have adapted. They've grown. They have definitely grown and adapted and are meeting the needs of the community. Yeah.
And that breaks my heart about the kiddo that was going to leave Yale because of that. I totally get that.
Right.
That's heartbreaking. And if they were good enough to get into Yale, then let's figure out a way to make it happen. And it sounds like the money wasn't the challenge.
Right. It wasn't the challenge. He had scholarships to get there. It was the clothes and the trash bag and the feeling inadequate in that regard.
Well, I love that you guys have figured out how to meet that need.
It's just constant evolving.
Yeah.
Evolving with, different demographics, different kids, and in a changing time.
Right. Yeah.
A completely changing time.
Well, for years, I haven't thought about all those early mornings and late nights reading applications. But it was funny because when we decided to schedule this episode with you, that is the thing that I remember. I remember that, and I remember seeing the kids walk across the stage at the Breakfast with the Stars, and I felt like I had to work pretty hard, and maybe even had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about that through high school and college. And then I would read one of these applications, and they're exactly what you were talking about at the beginning of the show. These kids worked multiple jobs, they made good grades, they're taking care of themselves, perhaps grandparents, siblings. And a lot of the kids were even unhomed. And so it sounds like the foundation has figured out a way to transform your work to meet some of those needs. And I'm just curious how it sort of informs and impacts what you guys do.
The beauty of the foundation is that, it's being so closely tied to the district that they have the heartbeat of what's really going on with children. So the Schools Foundation, they're constantly surveying counselors. Counselors are at the heart. They know their students and they know what they need. So they're constantly surveying counselors and administrators and evaluating their programs to ensure that it is, like you've said, serving the whole child. And, these kids, they feel safe with ISF because the Schools Foundation makes them part of the community. And a lot of them do open up and they've come to know through their counselors and through our great volunteers that it's a resource for them and for their families. The Schools Foundation has opened, they have a store that's open daily. I think it's open daily. I have to look at the hours, that has school supplies that they can go and buy way discounted. Some of them are free, I think, school supplies. So they, just go and get them, just go and pick them up. And as for the students, there's just so many that they just make your heart hurt. They make your heart hurt. My dad funded a scholarship several years ago before he passed away, and my dad had one of those childhoods, where he had to, he didn't graduate high school till he was, 19 or 20, and college till he was 29 or 30. So he did a perseverance scholarship, so that we read these. These are for students that have truly had to persevere. And the one this past year was actually shot. He was a football player that was shot in gang violence on his walking to school. And he ended up finishing his senior year playing football. And he got a standing ovation when he went across that stage, picking up that scholarship. And he was going to the University of Texas. So, just left his apartment and got caught up in a gang shooting. But was able to finish his football season.
Wow.
And his grades, and it didn't stop him. Just didn't stop him. So they have all kinds of stories. Student homelessness, and it's unbelievable. English is a second language. Mm-hmm. A lot of these kids don't know English. And still they persevere. They persevere through it.
Yeah. That is so amazing. And I too had the privilege of spending a couple of years reading those applications, and it is, it restores faith amongst all of us, I think, to see what the younger generation, what kids will go through and what these kids go through, and to see the Schools Foundation really step up and support them is amazing. And with that, you have such a personal family history with the organization, obviously, and you've seen it change and adapt and grow. What are your thoughts, and what kind of legacy do you hope it continues to leave in the Irving area, and where it goes between the next, crystal ball of the next 20 to 30 years?
My crystal ball broke, 3 years ago when a virus, which, changed the dynamics of everything as well. But I would say, I would hope that in 20 years, when the community is thriving, which is starting to, it has come back up with a vengeance, especially the hospitality community and the business community, which Irving is well known for. When it's continuing to thrive, I hope that people will look back and pinpoint that either the education or the support through one of these programs that they receive from the Schools Foundation, whether it came in the form of a scholarship or something from Sport Tank, school supplies, that it provided a sound education for them, or it provided a service for them, and that it helped to change their lives, that it helped to direct their lives, and that they can look back and maybe that they can give back. I always think, there before the grace of God go I, and I was very blessed in my life, so I want to be able to help people who haven't been so blessed, who weren't born into a family like I was born into. And I hope these kids, look back, and even though that they've had these hardships and they've had to rely on support, that maybe they will, once that they are on their feet, they'll come back and help some of the people that are the kids that are in their same situations. That's what I hope for. And we do have, the program's been around, for so long now that kids do come back and speak. So, one of my foot doctor actually received a scholarship. So, I try to go to I try to utilize people that I know got scholarships from the foundation and give my business to them. So yeah, she got a scholarship from the foundation. So that kind of stuff is very nice. Those success stories are very, very nice to see.
That is a beautiful hope and better than any crystal ball. And
Yes.
I wasn't going to mention this because I knew it would embarrass you, but I'm going to now. Even though I've known you for a long time, I had no idea how much volunteering you did.
Yeah.
I knew you gave back a lot, but when I just started looking between the schools foundation, the hospital, the Humane Society, the Pay It Forward Foundation, La Buena Vida Youth Leadership, Diana, I mean, well done. And it's beautiful to hear that you had a great upbringing, and then so you wanted to pay that forward. And so since you mentioned it, then I'm going to brag about your volunteering.
Thank you very much. And the connection to all those is people that are in situations, or an animal that's in that they can't control. You can't control your health. You can't control, you can't control your parents.
Right.
So, those are the people I help. That's where I give my money and my time. Yeah.
Love
you.
it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Diana, what's next for the Irving Schools Foundation?
I think, as I mentioned, they keep continuing to evaluate their programs. They keep evolving and, meet the needs of the children that they serve. And one of the biggest programs that they launched, which is just huge, and this started in 2019 before COVID, but it really grew during COVID, and that's called Food for Thought, which is currently feeding over 1,700 students each week. The schools now give free meals to every student in the district. So, every student receives a free meal, free breakfast, and free lunch. Well, that doesn't cover dinner in the weekends. So the Schools Foundation was blessed to receive a warehouse space in 2001 to help house this program. But a flood happened in 2002 and wiped out a lot of that space. And so now they've outgrown. So they're hoping to find a new space that will help them grow to serve their programs and their services, which, this Food for Thought program it's so big. It started in 2019 when one middle school counselor voiced concerns for a student who was struggling with school and behavior in class. And he wasn't where he was because of his weight, and he wasn't eating enough. He ate when he was at school, but he wasn't eating enough at home. And that whole thing launched this program, which is, you wouldn't believe it, Amanda. It is so huge. It has so many volunteers and so much food donation, food drives. And during COVID, it was just, the food drives that were just constant. And it has brought in so many volunteers, and just, it's incredible to watch. But childhood hunger is a real problem. It's a real problem, and it's a real problem in Irving. And so they have honestly helped to help food insecurity, because more than 75% of the Irving ISD population faces food insecurity on a frequent or daily basis. So they're helping a problem. They saw a problem and are helping it, which, that wasn't the case 40 years ago. It's the case now. That's the case today. Yeah. So it's can't learn if you're hungry. You can't learn if you're hungry. And it's just something I'm so proud of them for. It's unbelievable. Now, I hope they find a new space, and I hope they name that space after my mother. That's what I would like to see. That is actually what I would like to see. And if I can help make that happen, I will.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So with all that you do, giving back, all that the Schools Foundation's done, and all that your family's done, that is a huge basis of inspiration for us. Where do you look to glean information or inspiration and motivation from today?
I so admire people who see a problem and find a solution, like my mom did. She saw a problem and she found a solution. I also admire, since I don't have kids, these parents who have faced just the most devastating tragedy and turned their grief into good work, whether you lost a child to fentanyl or in a school shooting. And so one of the the projects that I give to that's not in Irving. It's actually not in the state. That I find it's so well run, and everything they've done is just, I think, is so good. It's Sandy Hook Promise, and that's Sandy Hook, the school in Newton, which was really probably one of the worst mass shootings. It just gutted me. When you have 20 first graders that are just slaughtered in their classroom. It was founded by parents, and two parents continue to run it. I think they first started, advocating for, against gun violence. When they saw that wasn't going to change, they changed. They pivoted, and so now they educate and empower youth and adults to prevent the violence at home and at schools and in communities, through some evidence, based science. Through know these signs, look for these signs, and it's just they saw what they needed to do. They saw what wasn't going to work and what they could do to help prevent what happened to their children in the future. And that takes a lot of courage to say this isn't going to happen. This isn't going to happen. So what can we do with our resources to help ensure that another parent doesn't go through what we went through? So that's kind of who I look to, is Sandy Hook Promise, and seeing what they're doing and how they're doing it.
That's really cool. Sad that we have to have that to be a really cool organization.
It is
Someday
sad.
We won't.
It's sad, but I don't know if anything motivates me more than kids do.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, what can our community do for the Schools Foundation or any other drops, like getting a new warehouse and naming it after some certain person? But we can
they're
do
always,
for you.
They're always looking for money but they're also looking for other things, clothing, school supplies, food. They have they do have a backpack drive every summer, and this is so fun. One of my friends actually threw herself a birthday party, and she bought a bunch of backpacks. She bought all the school supplies, which is listed on the Schools Foundation website. And we just we spent her birthday loading backpacks. And I just thought that was just such a good idea. We all felt good about it. We had food and a little bit of wine, and went in through a assembly line loading up backpacks. So at the end of the night, we had all these backpacks to donate to the Schools Foundation. And I think they end up, with 800 backpacks, or needing 800 backpacks for elementary school students. And they do that every August. And that's just, it's on their website. It tells you, how to run a backpack drive. There's also instructions on how to do a food drive for them for their Food for Thought programs. So they have a great website that you can log on to see all the different ways that you can donate. And it's all right there in one bar. You can just click, whether it's to scholarships or Food for Thought, school supplies, or whatever, just to donate money, whatever your heart's feeling. And that's what one of my mentors had told me. This should be, when you're volunteering your time or your money, it should be something you enjoy. It should be something that brings you joy and brings you pleasure. And that's what donating should be. It should make your heart feel good.
Well, that's fantastic. And thank you so much for your time, what you do, all the things that no one knows that you do.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And thank you for letting me talk about this. Thank you for letting me talk about something I'm so passionate about, and for letting me talk about my mother, who I could talk about all day.
Yeah. Well,
I just appreciate this opportunity.
Yeah. And just know we're really grateful that I'm grateful that Amanda introduced me to you 19 years ago.
Likewise. And I'm grateful that you guys are doing this blog series. I think it's great. I think it's great to learn. I learned a lot just listening to the ones that you've done.
Thanks.
Wow, I knew the Irving Schools Foundation was doing great work, but I'm so excited to hear how they've adapted to meet even more needs for the students. It really is an incredible organization serving a very worthy population. To learn more about how you can get involved, visit them at irvingschoolsfoundation.org.